In a picturesque suburban neighborhood where manicured lawns and pristine driveways are the norms, a simmering conflict began to unravel. Here, each home told a story of conformity and community pride, but beneath this polished surface lay an unexpected clash between tradition and regulation. At the heart of this tension was a classic car, a gleaming piece of automotive history that had become a symbol of passion for one man, who happened to be a world-famous collector. The protagonist had always cherished his collection, meticulously restoring each vehicle to its former glory. His garage was a sanctuary filled with vibrant colors, polished chrome, and the scent of rich leather, a stark contrast to the rigid guidelines set forth by the local homeowners association. This HOA, steadfast in its mission to maintain property values and aesthetic uniformity, viewed the classic car as an eyesore rather than a treasure. When a notice was slipped under his door, declaring that his beloved vehicle violated community standards, it felt like an affront, not just to his property but to his identity. The HOA's representatives were oblivious to the significance of what they deemed a distraction. To them, it was just another old car parked where it shouldn't be. To him, it was a testament to countless hours spent restoring both metal and memories. As the tension escalated, the stage was set for an unexpected showdown, one that would reveal not only the depths of his passion, but also challenge the very perceptions held by his community. From a young age, the protagonist was captivated by the allure of classic cars. Growing up in a family where automotive passion ran deep, weekends were often spent at car shows and auctions, exploring the unique histories of each vehicle. This upbringing ignited a lifelong love affair with automobiles that would eventually transform him into a world-renowned collector. His name became synonymous with rare finds and spectacular restorations, earning him accolades in various automotive circles and features in prestigious magazines. His collection boasted an impressive array of vehicles, from vintage muscle cars to elegant pre-war classics, each with its own story and charm. The thrill of discovering a long-lost model or resurrecting a forgotten gem fueled his obsession. While each restoration project was treated as an art form, every detail meticulously crafted to honor the car's original beauty. For him, these vehicles represented not just machines but memories, reminders of late-night garage sessions with friends, the excitement of competition at shows, and the joy of sharing his passion with fellow enthusiasts. Beyond personal enjoyment, he often participated in charitable events that showcased his collection, using his status to raise funds for causes close to his heart. His deep-seated belief was that classic cars embodied history and culture, deserving recognition and respect. However, as he faced opposition from the HOA over his prized vehicle's presence in the neighborhood, he realized that defending this passion would require more than just love. It called for a battle against misunderstanding and misperception within his own community. The Homeowners Association had established a strict set of rules designed to maintain the neighborhood's aesthetic appeal and ensure conformity among residents. Among these regulations, one particularly contentious clause stood out regarding vehicle ownership and storage. The HOA mandated that all cars parked in driveways must be modern and in working condition, which effectively excluded classic cars that, despite their beauty and craftsmanship, did not fit the contemporary mold. Additionally, the HOA prohibited any vehicles deemed non-operational from being visible to the public eye. This rule encompassed not just vehicles in disrepair, but also those needing minor restoration work. For the protagonist, whose classic car was both a cherished possession and a subject of pride, this regulation felt particularly stifling. The very nature of classic car restoration often involved stages where a vehicle might not be fully functional or presentable, yet those moments were integral to the joy of breathing new life into an old masterpiece. Furthermore, the HOA enforced limitations on parking within the community. Vehicles could only occupy designated areas, meaning that even temporary parking arrangements for showcases or community events were closely monitored. As the single voice advocating for classic car appreciation, the protagonist found it increasingly frustrating to navigate these rigid guidelines, determined to have his beloved collection recognized as valuable pieces of art rather than mere violations of community standards. This growing tension laid the groundwork for a confrontation that would challenge not only his rights as a collector, but also the HOA's understanding of automotive heritage. The day that would mark the beginning of a tumultuous confrontation started like any other. The sun shone brightly over the neighborhood, illuminating the polished surface of his cherished classic car as he prepared to take it out for a leisurely drive. As he admired the vehicle's sleek lines and vibrant color, he felt a swell of pride, oblivious to the storm brewing just beyond his driveway. Moments later, two representatives from the Homeowners Association approached with a clipboard in hand, their expressions stern but not unfriendly. The protagonist's heart sank as they introduced themselves and pointed to the car, explaining that it had been reported as a violation of HOA rules. He felt a rush of disbelief mixed with indignation. How could they not see the beauty and craftsmanship that lay before them? As they cited the regulations, he struggled to remain composed. He could hear his voice tremble as he defended his passion, trying to articulate the artistry behind classic cars and their historical significance. The representatives listened, but their eyes revealed a predetermined stance, reinforcing the notion that his beloved vehicle was simply an eyesore in their eyes. Frustration boiled within him as he fought back the urge to lash out. How could they misunderstand something so deeply meaningful? The confrontation left a bitter taste in his mouth, igniting a determination within him to challenge not only their rules, but also the misconceptions about classic cars. As they left, he felt a mix of anger and resolve. A fire had been lit, and he knew this battle was far from over. The confrontation with the HOA representatives revealed a deep-seated misunderstanding that went beyond mere regulations. It underscored a lack of appreciation for the cultural value of classic cars. To the HOA, automobiles were simply functional tools meant for transportation, and their focus was squarely on maintaining property standards in a community that prioritized modern aesthetics. Their worldview failed to encompass the rich history and craftsmanship that classic cars embodied, reducing these vehicles to mere distractions cluttering pristine driveways. As the protagonist attempted to articulate his passion, he realized that the HOA members were likely unaware of the vibrant culture surrounding classic car collecting. Cars like his weren't just machines, they were pieces of art, representing eras defined by innovation and design. Each vehicle told a story of its own, of dreams deferred, roads traveled, and community gatherings at car shows, where enthusiasts united over shared passions. Moreover, there was a pervasive misconception that classic car collectors were hoarders of junk or dreamers living in the past. The stereotype overlooked the dedication and financial investment required to restore and maintain these vehicles. The protagonist's collection was not an indication of neglect, but rather a celebration of automotive heritage and engineering excellence. With this insight came a realization: effective communication would be critical in bridging the gap between his world and theirs. To change perceptions, he would need to approach the HOA with not just facts, but also stories that highlighted the joy and pride inherent in classic car ownership, fostering understanding instead of conflict. News of the confrontation quickly spread through the neighborhood, eliciting a variety of reactions from residents. Supporters began to emerge, particularly fellow car enthusiasts who admired the protagonist's collection and understood the passion that went into classic car ownership. These individuals rallied around him, sharing their own stories and experiences of restoring vehicles, often reminiscing about car shows and community events that celebrated automotive culture. Social media groups lit up with discussions on the importance of preserving classic cars, and many neighbors began to realize that the collector's prized vehicle was more than just an eyesore. It represented a vibrant hobby that brought joy and connection. Conversely, some HOA board members and staunch traditionalists in the community maintained their opposition, viewing the classic car as a radical departure from the neighborhood's standards. They expressed concerns over property values, worrying that allowing one exception could set a precedent for others to follow. These voices echoed through community meetings, urging strict adherence to existing regulations without considering the potential benefits of embracing diversity in vehicle ownership. As opinions clashed, the protagonist sensed a growing divide within the community, a schism between those who celebrated individuality and those who prioritized conformity. He also noticed that while some residents supported him quietly, fearing backlash from the HOA, others were emboldened by his determination to challenge the status quo. This mix of encouragement and resistance compelled him to take action, determined not only to defend his car, but also to foster a broader conversation about appreciation for automotive heritage among all residents. Determined to defend his beloved classic car, the protagonist took proactive steps to engage with the homeowners association, armed with knowledge and a passion for automotive history. He decided to organize a community meeting to educate not only the HOA members but also his neighbors about the significance of classic vehicles. With the support of fellow car enthusiasts, he prepared a presentation that detailed the cultural and historical importance of classic cars, showcasing their role in shaping automotive innovation and design. At the meeting, he shared captivating stories behind each vehicle in his collection, emphasizing the craftsmanship and dedication involved in restoration. He brought photographs and even arranged for a couple of fellow collectors to display their own vehicles, effectively transforming the gathering into a celebration of automotive art. The vibrant atmosphere contrasted sharply with the initial apprehension of the HOA representatives, who began to realize that what they had dismissed as an eyesore was actually a profound expression of creativity and heritage. Additionally, he prepared informational pamphlets that highlighted local car shows, charity events, and community gatherings where classic cars played an essential role. He wanted to emphasize how these vehicles could foster connections among neighbors and create opportunities for charitable contributions. The protagonist's heartfelt appeal began to resonate with some residents, softening opposition. While a few board members remained unconvinced, he noticed others opening up to the idea of revisiting the HOA's regulations regarding classic cars. His resolve to educate rather than confront became a turning point, sparking conversations that could potentially reshape community perspective. Emboldened by the initial positive response to his community meeting, the protagonist took further steps to rally support for a revision of the HOA rules regarding classic cars. He organized informal gatherings with fellow collectors at local coffee shops and garages, creating a space for passionate discussions about automotive history and shared experience. These meetups grew in popularity, attracting not only car enthusiasts, but also curious neighbors who were beginning to appreciate the cultural significance of classic vehicles. At one such gathering, he proposed the idea of a petition to formally request the HOA review their regulation. The room buzzed with enthusiasm as attendees discussed specific changes they would like to see, including allowances for classic cars and more flexible guidelines on vehicle visibility. Inspired by the collective passion in the room, they agreed to draft a petition that highlighted both the economic benefits of hosting car shows and the potential for fostering community spirit through shared hobbies. The protagonist took charge of crafting the document, emphasizing how classic cars could serve as a bridge between generations and foster deeper connections among residents. With each signature collected from supporters within the neighborhood, he felt an increasing sense of pride. As word spread about their initiative, more residents began to express interest in supporting the cause. This momentum culminated in plans for another community meeting, dedicated solely to discussing revisions to HOA policies, a gathering that aimed not just to challenge existing norms, but to celebrate diversity within their suburban enclave. The protagonist's determination transformed into a movement that could change perceptions and potentially reshape their community's identity. As the momentum around the petition grew, the protagonist secured a formal meeting with the HOA board to discuss the proposed revisions to the regulations surrounding classic cars. The atmosphere was tense. Board members had their guard up, prepared to defend their initial stance against what they perceived as a challenge to community standards. During the meeting, the protagonist presented the petition, which now boasted dozens of signatures from supportive residents. He emphasized how classic cars could enhance community events and bring people together, framing them as not just vehicles but as a means of fostering pride and connection among neighbors. Several fellow car enthusiasts attended to reinforce his points, sharing their personal stories about how classic cars had enriched their lives and even contributed to charitable causes. However, while some board members appeared intrigued, others remained skeptical. They raised concerns about property values and community image, reiterating their commitment to maintaining a uniform aesthetic. The protagonist listened carefully to their objections, using each point as an opportunity to further educate them on the nuances of classic car culture. After a spirited exchange, the board agreed to consider a trial period where classic cars could be allowed under certain conditions, such as limited visibility and participation in organized community events. Although this compromise was not a complete victory, it signaled progress and a willingness to engage in dialogue. With renewed determination, The protagonist left the meeting feeling hopeful yet aware that further negotiations would be necessary to fully shift perceptions within the HOA. It became clear that building understanding would be a gradual process, but one worth pursuing for the sake of both his passion and community harmony. The conflict between the protagonist and the HOA began to reverberate throughout the community, leading to noticeable shifts in relationships and perceptions among residents. Initially divided, neighbors started to engage in conversations that transcended their previous allegiances. Those who had once held firm to traditional views were now intrigued by the stories shared by car enthusiasts, which painted a vibrant picture of automotive culture as a vital part of history and community identity. As public awareness grew, more residents found themselves attending car shows and events organized with the help of the protagonist, allowing them to experience firsthand the artistry and craftsmanship that classic cars represented. These events fostered camaraderie, as residents from diverse backgrounds came together to celebrate not just vehicles but shared passions. A neighborhood once defined by conformity began to embrace individuality, where personal interests were welcomed rather than pushed aside. Conversely, some staunch traditionalists remained hesitant. Concerns about property values and aesthetics still lingered in their minds, leading to discussions that sometimes turned contentious. However, these dialogues also provided an opportunity for advocacy. As more residents joined the conversation, they expressed their desire for regulations that allowed for greater flexibility while preserving community standards. Ultimately, this conflict sparked a broader recognition of the value of diverse hobbies within the neighborhood. Relationships deepened as newfound connections were formed around shared interests, promoting a more inclusive community dynamic where differences were celebrated rather than stifled. This evolving atmosphere paved the way for ongoing discussions about how individuals could contribute to enriching their communal landscape while respecting shared values. After weeks of discussions, community meetings, and a trial period allowing classic cars, the HOA finally reached a resolution that benefited both parties. The board convened to review the feedback from residents and the success of various events featuring classic cars, which not only attracted more visitors to the neighborhood, but also fostered a sense of camaraderie among residents. In a pivotal meeting, the protagonist presented compelling evidence showing how the presence of classic cars could enhance community events and strengthen neighborly bonds. This time, board members who had previously been skeptical began to see the potential benefits more clearly. After lengthy discussions, they agreed to amend the HOA regulations to allow classic cars with certain stipulations, namely, that they be parked in designated areas during community events and displayed only during specified time. The protagonist felt a wave of relief wash over him as he learned of the decision. It marked a significant victory not only for him, but for all car enthusiasts in the community who had rallied behind his cause. Moreover, it demonstrated a willingness from the HOA to adapt and embrace diversity in interests among residents. As news spread about the new policy, excitement rippled through the neighborhood. Residents celebrated with a car show that showcased classic vehicles, blending automotive passion with community spirit. This event solidified relationships across differing viewpoints and established a new tradition within the neighborhood. The protagonist had not only defended his passion, but had also played a key role in reshaping community dynamics, paving the way for continued dialogue and understanding in their suburban enclave. As the dust settled from the recent victories and celebrations, the protagonist took a moment to reflect on his journey amid the fervor of his passion for classic cars. For him, collecting was never merely about owning beautiful machines. It was about preserving slices of history that told stories of innovation, artistry, and human connection. Every vehicle in his collection represented countless hours of dedication and love, embodying memories that transcended generations. Through this conflict with the HOA, he learned invaluable lessons about advocacy, resilience, and community engagement. He realized that his identity as a collector was intertwined not just with cars but with a larger narrative surrounding appreciation for history and culture. This experience taught him the importance of communication, how sharing stories could foster understanding and bridge gaps between differing perspectives. The protagonist also recognized how crucial it was to advocate for diversity within the community. By standing firm in his beliefs while being open to dialogue, he helped shift perceptions among neighbors who once viewed classic cars as mere distraction. Instead, they began to see them as part of their shared community heritage, a vibrant expression of individuality within an environment often defined by conformity. Ultimately, He emerged from this experience with a renewed sense of purpose. The passion that drove him to collect classic cars also fueled his commitment to championing these values in his community. As he looked at his prized automobiles parked proudly during neighborhood events, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that both his identity and the collective spirit of his community had been enriched through this journey.